In the glittering heart of Draven, where silver banners waved beneath an eternal sun, Alpha King Kyle was both feared and revered. His reign was one of absolute control, his soldiers unmatched, his laws unquestioned, and his court ruled by an obsession for beauty and dominance. To be perfect was to survive, to be flawed was to vanish. The king himself was the image of perfection, tall, carved from strength and pride, his silver eyes cold as moonlight. Songs praised his victories, but whispers followed behind him. He has no heart to love, only a will to rule. When the High Council brought news of his arranged marriage, Kale received it with a smirk, until he saw the portrait. The girl, Ilara of the House Varen, was said to be shy, with a quiet demeanor and a scar that marred her left cheek. The court had mocked her for years, calling her the duckling hidden among swans. Kyle clenched the letter in disgust. "A king of Draven," he said coldly, "does not take a bride who cannot even hold her head high." But the alliance was essential. Her family's lands held the last ancient wells that nourished the kingdom's armies. Duty forced his hand, and so the Alpha King agreed, not knowing that beneath the veil of the ugly duckling, a storm was waiting to rise. That night, as the stars glimmered over the dark palace spires, the winds carried a whisper, a prophecy forgotten. The king who worships perfection will be undone by the beauty he cannot see. The decision was not born of love, but of necessity. For years, the Draven kingdom had been locked in bitter tension with the Varen clan, proud warriors of the north whose rebellion nearly shattered the empire. Their lands were rich with silver and moonstone, both vital to Draven's power. Now, with the Varen Alpha slain in battle, the only way to ensure peace was through marriage, the king's ring on the hand of the fallen Alpha's daughter. Her name was Ilara. The court whispered that she was cursed, her beauty spoiled by a scar that ran from temple to jaw, her voice quiet as wind. Some said she never looked anyone in the eye. Others claimed she hid behind veils, afraid of being seen. Kyle agreed to the union with cold indifference. "If peace demands a sacrifice," he said, "then let it be mine." To his council, it was a masterstroke, peace without bloodshed. But to Kale, it was humiliation. He, the perfect Alpha King, would marry what the world called a blemish. As he stared out from his balcony that night, a storm brewed over the palace. Lightning streaked the sky, a warning, though he didn't yet understand it. In the shadows below, Ilara's carriage approached the capital gates, her heart trembling not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Resolve. Her name is Ilara, a quiet woman who's been hidden away from the public eye since birth. The reports came in waves, each more insulting than the last. "The girl barely speaks," one messenger scoffed before the throne. "She walks like she's afraid of her own shadow." Another chimed in. "Her face is hidden behind a dull gray veil, no jewels, no grace. The people say she's too plain for the Alpha King." Kyle listened in silence, his expression carved from stone. But inwardly, irritation simmered. He had expected as much. The daughter of a defeated clan, untrained in courtly manners, unfit for royal company. Unworthy of the throne, his beta added carefully, but useful for peace. Kale's golden eyes narrowed. "Then she shall have her title," he said coldly. "A queen in name only." The court laughed quietly, emboldened by his scorn. To them, the union was a formality, a political leash around a ruined house. But far away in her modest chamber, Ilara overheard the same words through her attendant's whispers. Plain, awkward, unworthy. She looked into the cracked mirror before her, touching the faint scar that traced her cheek. Her reflection was softer now, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. "If he thinks me unworthy," she murmured, "then he will learn the cost of underestimating me." And that night, as thunder rolled across the skies of Draven, Ilara swore that when the Alpha King finally saw her face, he would regret every word. Kale had built his rule on strength, dominance, and fear. To him, beauty was a luxury. fleeting, unimportant. What mattered was loyalty and control. His soldiers called him the Iron Alpha, the ruler whose word was law, whose enemies vanished without trace. Yet beneath the cold armor of authority was a man haunted by betrayal. Years ago, a woman he trusted, his first mate, had poisoned his pack's loyalty, leading to the death of his younger brother. Since then, Kyle vowed never to let emotion cloud judgment again. When word reached him of the proposed alliance through marriage, his advisors praised it as destiny. The Western clans had long resisted his rule, but with their alpha dead, the only heir was his daughter, Ilara, a girl said to be frail, untrained, and scarred by a childhood accident. "She'll bend easily," said one advisor. "A weak queen is safer than a strong one." Kyle said nothing, only nodded. But deep down he despised the thought. He wanted a warrior by his side, not a trembling child. Still, politics demanded obedience. He walked to the great balcony of his fortress, gazing down at the silver forests of Draven, stretching far beyond the walls. His reflection in the glass showed a man hardened by loss, sharp eyes, chiseled features, and a soul encased in ice. He poured himself a glass of spiced mead and muttered to no one, "A bride of convenience. A beauty or a beast, it makes no difference." But even as he said it, the wind howled through the high towers as though laughing at him, for destiny was already shifting. Far from the palace, beyond the rivers of mist, a cloaked carriage carried a woman whose name was whispered with pity, Ilara. But the truth was something no one, not even Kale, was ready for. Beneath the veil of the so-called ugly duckling was the heir to an ancient, untamed power. And when her eyes met his, the Iron Alpha's walls would begin to crack. The grand hall of Draven was bathed in silver light. Moonfire torches lined the marble walls, their glow reflected on armor, jewels, and the polished obsidian floor. The entire kingdom gathered to witness the long-awaited union, a political bond that would end years of bloodshed between the rival clans. At the far end of the hall stood King Kale, tall and cold, his expression carved from stone. His black ceremonial cloak trailed behind him, embroidered with the crest of the wolf, power, dominion, and fear. To his left, his councilmen whispered of strategy and alliances. To his right, nobles from every corner of the realm awaited the unveiling of his bride. Ilara entered in silence. Her gown was unlike anything the court had seen, spun from moon silk, flowing like water, modest yet regal. But what captured everyone's attention was the veil, a long shimmering piece of silver lace that concealed her face completely. It was said to be the decree of the late council of Draven. No royal ceremony shall begin until the bride's worth is proven before the Alpha King. The crowd murmured with disdain. She hides her flaws. They say she's hideous beneath that veil. An embarrassment to the throne, someone sneered softly. Kale's eyes, sharp as daggers, followed her every step as she walked toward him. Her movements were graceful, measured, not timid as he had expected. Yet he felt no spark of curiosity, only the dull sense of duty pressing against his chest. When she finally reached the altar, she bowed her head, the silver veil gleaming in the torchlight. The high priest's voice echoed through the hall. "By bond and blood, by moon and might, the Alpha King and his chosen mate shall unite for the peace of the realm." Kyle extended his hand, firm, cold, to complete the ritual. Her smaller hand slipped into his. The touch startled him. It was steady, confident, warm. The hall fell utterly silent. Even through the veil, he felt something strange, a pulse, a presence, an energy that stirred the alpha within him. For a fleeting second, Kale's breath caught. He almost felt alive again. Then just as quickly he shut it away. He released her hand, turning to the priest. "Let the ceremony end." "The veil remains," Kale ordered. "Beauty is not needed in a bond forged for power." Ilara said nothing. But behind the veil, Her lips curved in the faintest knowing smile, for she understood something Kale did not. The king thought he was marrying a timid shadow, an ugly duckling. But beneath that silver veil lay a secret that would soon turn his world upside down. The moment the vows were spoken and the ceremonial seal placed upon their hands, a ripple of unease spread through the grand hall. The nobles, courtiers, and visiting lords began to murmur among themselves, voices low but sharp enough to slice through the silence. "Did you see her veil? Even the king hasn't looked upon her face. They say she bears scars from the rebellion, that her own clan hid her away out of pity. The Alpha King deserves beauty, not a trembling shadow." The whispers grew like wildfire beneath the vaulted ceiling, echoing against the stone walls of the palace. Servants exchanged glances, and ladies of the court hid their gossip behind jeweled fans. Each rumor twisted crueler than the last. A storm of judgment directed at the veiled bride who stood motionless beside the king. Kyle heard every word. His jaw tightened, though he showed no emotion. To him, their gossip was irrelevant. The marriage was duty, nothing more. A union to bind the restless clans, to silence rebellion, to strengthen his throne. What did beauty matter when peace was the prize? But Alara heard them too. Beneath the veil her heart pounded, not from fear, but fury. Her hands clenched at her sides, nails biting into her palms as venomous words filled the air around her. Shame? No. She had known shame before, hunger, loss, betrayal, but never again would she bow to it. Her mind whispered coldly, "Let them talk." As Kyle turned to lead her from the altar, she straightened her spine, her head lifting slightly higher beneath the veil. Though none could see her face, the gesture alone silenced a few of the murmurs. For the first time that night, something about the ugly duckling unnerved the court. And from the high balcony, an old seer watching the ceremony leaned toward her apprentice and whispered, "Fools, they mock what they do not understand. The veil does not hide her shame, it hides her power." That was the night the whispers began, and none in the kingdom knew that the woman behind the silver veil would soon shake the throne itself. As the newly crowned queen walks beside him through the endless corridors of the royal palace, Alara feels the weight of 1,000 eyes, but none sting as deeply as Kale's indifference. He doesn't spare her a single glance. His hand, cold and rigid, grips hers only for formality, releasing it the moment they are out of sight of the nobles. He walks ahead with his usual commanding stride, every step echoing his authority and disdain. Alara lingers behind, her silver veil fluttering softly as she studies the man fate has bound her to. The Alpha King, tall, chiseled, and wrapped in the kind of arrogance that could freeze fire itself. He carries the air of a man who believes the world should bend before him. And yet, as proud as he stands, his silence cuts deeper than words. When they reach the royal chambers, Kyle finally speaks, not gently, not warmly, but like one delivering an order to a soldier. "You will be treated with respect as queen, but this union is a matter of peace, not affection. I expect you to know your place." Her chest tightens, not from fear, but from humiliation. She bows her head, hiding the flicker of pain that crosses her face. His pride, sharper than any blade, wounds her in places no scar could reach. Still she answers with calm defiance, her voice steady beneath the veil. "As you command, Your Majesty." But when he leaves her standing alone in the grand, silent chamber, Alara presses her trembling hands against her heart. Beneath the mask of obedience, her spirit burns. She whispers to herself, "You may ignore me now, Kyle. But one day, you'll see me, and you'll never forget what you tried to overlook." And in that quiet vow, a storm begins to stir, one that will turn pride into longing, and the ugly duckling into the fire that melts the Alpha King's frozen crown. That night, after the grand feast and hollow congratulations, Kale stands before the great hearth, his jaw set like stone. The firelight dances across his sharp features, but no warmth touches his eyes. He turns to Alara, still veiled, still silent at his side. The courtiers have left, the music has faded, and all that remains is the heavy truth of a union neither asked for. "You will sleep in the east wing," Kale says curtly, his tone clipped, formal, almost cruel. "The Queen's chambers are prepared. From this night forward you will remain there. I have no desire to share my bed with a stranger." The words land like cold steel. Alara's heart stutters, not because she expected tenderness, but because his disdain pierces deeper than she imagined. She clenches her hands beneath her flowing sleeves, steadying her breath as silence stretches between them. "As you wish, Your Majesty," she replies softly, her voice calm but trembling at the edges. He doesn't look at her again. Turning toward the window, he stares out into the dark horizon, the kingdom he commands, the peace he purchased with this unwanted marriage. To him, she is nothing more than a treaty wrapped in silk. But as Alara walks down the echoing corridor toward her lonely chambers, the weight of the veil feels heavier than ever. Inside, her reflection in the mirror shows a woman hidden by shadow. Not disfigured, not plain, but deliberately unseen. And beneath that veil, her lips curve in a quiet, sorrowful smile. "So be it," she whispers to herself. Let him reject the stranger. The woman he will one day crave has yet to be revealed. Outside, thunder rolls across the mountains, as if the heavens themselves have heard her vow. But Alara carries a secret, one that could shatter the fragile peace her marriage was meant to protect. The stories told about her, of a timid, disfigured girl too plain to rule beside a king, were never hers to begin with. They were lies crafted out of fear, born in the ashes of a fallen house. Her father, the last true alpha of the Silver Moon clan, had died defending their people from Kale's ancestors. Before his death, he sealed her fate with a whisper and a curse. "Let them believe you are nothing, my daughter. Only in shadows can our blood survive." And so she obeyed. Hidden in monasteries, wrapped in veils and silence, Alara learned to live unseen. The scar across her cheek, made with her own trembling hand, became her shield. The veil she now wears on her wedding day is not tradition, but protection. For beneath it lies the face of the woman the royal bloodline once swore to destroy, the heir to the power they feared most. Her true beauty isn't just in her flawless skin or her luminous silver eyes. It's in what they symbolize. The ancient mark of the moonborn alphas, a lineage capable of commanding both wolf and wind. And though she has buried that part of herself, it still breathes within her, restless and waiting. Each step she takes in the king's cold halls stirs whispers of prophecy, that the union of two rival bloods would awaken the lost fire of the old kingdom. Kale may think he's married a plain and fragile woman, but soon he will discover that beneath her meek facade lies the last living storm of the Silver Moon bloodline, and that the woman he dismissed as unworthy may be the very power destined to either save or destroy him. The veil may hide her face, but it cannot hide fate. Beneath the veil, she is breathtaking, a blend of ethereal beauty and quiet strength. Her eyes, silver as moonlight, hold the calm of someone who has endured more pain than most could survive. Her lips curve softly, not in pride, but in patience, the kind of grace that doesn't beg to be seen, but cannot be ignored. Her golden brown hair shimmers faintly beneath the silken drape, cascading like liquid sunlight. And when she moves, there's an elegance that feels unearthly, every motion measured, every breath deliberate. Yet, it isn't just her beauty that captivates. It's the quiet power radiating from her presence. She carries herself like one who knows both loss and purpose, the rare kind of soul forged by heartbreak, not broken by it. The court may mock her, the king may ignore her, but the guards who escort her to her chambers glance twice, uncertain if they've just escorted a lamb or a hidden flame. And when Alara catches her reflection in the mirror that night, she touches the edge of her veil and whispers to her own shadow, One day they will see the truth, and when they do, the world will burn for underestimating me. Days turn into weeks, and the king's carefully ordered world begins to shift in ways he can no longer ignore. Kyle, once unshakable and feared by all, finds his thoughts wandering, not to war, not to politics, but to her, to the way her voice hums softly when she thinks no one is listening, to the way she tends to the palace's wounded hounds with hands gentler than silk. He tells himself she is beneath him, a marriage of convenience, a union of strategy. Yet every time he sees her, his resolve weakens. One evening, as he walks past the moonlit gardens, he spots her alone beneath the silver trees. Her veil has slipped slightly, revealing the faint outline of her jaw, her lips illuminated by starlight. For a heartbeat, Kyle forgets to breathe. The rumors of her plainness crumble in that moment. Even hidden, she radiates a beauty that feels dangerous, not just to the eye, but to the heart. He takes a step forward, meaning to speak, to remind her of her place. But when she turns, her eyes meet his. Luminous, steady, unafraid. His wolf growls within him, not in anger, but in recognition. Something deep, ancient, and forbidden stirs in his soul. He realizes with unsettling clarity, this woman, this veiled mystery, is not the weakness he despised. She might very well be his undoing. The mockery in the royal court grows with each passing day. The noble women drape themselves in silk and perfume, circling Elara like vultures around a wounded creature. They whisper about her scars that no one has ever seen, about the veil she still wears even weeks after the wedding. She's ashamed. One sneers behind her fan. She must hide her face for good reason. Another laughs. Their laughter rings through the marble hall, cruel and brittle. But Elara never breaks. She stands tall in her modest gown, her hands folded, her voice calm, even when their words slice through her like knives. Inside, her mind is sharper than any blade, observing, memorizing, learning how the court moves and breathes. At night, when she removes her veil in the solitude of her chamber, the moonlight touches her face. Flawless, luminous, alive. Her beauty could stop the world if revealed, but she knows it would also sign her death warrant. Kale, meanwhile, grows restless. Every time he passes her in the corridor, her faint scent of jasmine lingers, awakening something primal in him. Her presence disrupts the order he built his kingdom on. He begins to notice the way courtiers bow slightly lower when she enters, the way servants rush to obey her gentle voice. Her silence no longer looks like weakness. It radiates quiet command. And one evening during a royal feast, as laughter and music fill the hall, Elara meets Kale's gaze for the first time. Truly meets it. Her eyes, bright and steady, hold him captive. For a moment, the room disappears. The proud Alpha King feels his heart stutter, not from lust, but from something deeper, older, dangerous. He realizes with an unease he cannot name that the woman he dismissed as a plain political pawn might be the only one strong enough to unmake him. Kale's curiosity begins as a flicker, a distraction he refuses to name. He tells himself it's strategy, that every queen must be understood to be controlled. Yet the longer he watches Elara, the more his resolve falters. From the shadows of the royal garden, he studies her as she tends to the lilies and moonflowers each morning. Her movements are quiet, measured, but not timid. There's a rhythm in the way she brushes her fingers over petals, as if she carries the memory of freedom even within golden walls. She never gossips like the court ladies, never bows too low, never raises her voice. And yet, servants pause when she passes. Even the palace hounds sit at her feet. Something about her presence commands without words. Kyle begins to linger near places he knows she will appear. The balcony overlooking the fountain, the library corner where she reads in silence. Once, he catches her laughing softly at a bird stealing crumbs from her tray, and the sound stirs something deep in him. Warmth, alien and unwelcome. He finds himself wondering, what does she hide beneath that veil? Is it truly disfigurement or something far more dangerous? Beauty so powerful it could enslave a king. That night, he dreams of her, faceless, mysterious, yet impossibly radiant. And when he wakes, his heart is pounding with a longing he dares not confess, even to himself. The mighty Alpha King, conqueror of realms, finds himself conquered instead, not by armies or enemies, but by the unseen eyes of the veiled queen who moves like a whisper of light through his darkness. The forest hunt was meant to display the king's dominance, a spectacle for nobles and soldiers alike. The air crackled with the scent of pine and blood as Kale led the hunt through the mist, his wolf senses sharp, every movement controlled. But then, chaos erupted. Arrows sliced through the air. The royal guards fell one by one, their cries echoing through the trees. Bandits, fast, ruthless, and strangely organized, surrounded the king's party. Kyle drew his blade, ready to fight, but the enemy was too many. A dagger aimed straight for his heart, and then the world shifted. Alara, the quiet queen who was supposed to be timid and fragile, stepped in front of him. Her eyes glowed with silver light. The air around her shimmered as unseen power rippled outward, freezing the assassins in midair. Their weapons disintegrated into dust before they could touch her. Kale stood frozen, not from fear, but disbelief. The power of an alpha pulsed from her body, yet it was gentler, purer, something he'd never felt before. When the last bandit fled, Alara fell to her knees, gasping, the glow fading from her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to see that." Kale knelt beside her, his hand trembling as he touched her shoulder. "What are you?" he demanded, but his voice was low, almost reverent. She met his gaze through the veil, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "A secret the throne would kill to bury." And in that moment, Kyle realized his ugly duckling bride was no ordinary woman. She was a storm in disguise, and the truth about her could destroy or redeem his entire kingdom. Kale lay on the forest floor, his shoulder bleeding from an arrow that had grazed his skin. The world around him spun, the clash of steel, the shouts of guards, the rustle of the wind, all dimmed until there was only her. Alara knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she tore away the veil that had shielded her face for so long. Time seemed to stop. The silk fell away, revealing not the plain, scarred girl the rumors had painted, but a woman whose beauty stole the very breath from his lungs. Her skin shimmered faintly beneath the moonlight, and her eyes, her eyes, glowed like molten gold laced with silver, burning with power far older than any alpha's. The air around her pulsed with magic, raw and untamed, whispering of bloodlines forgotten and power forbidden. Kale couldn't look away. His chest tightened with awe and something deeper, fear, wonder, and desire woven into one. He began, but the words died on his tongue. Alara pressed a finger to his lips, silencing him. "You weren't meant to see this," she murmured, her voice trembling, though not from weakness. "The world would call me a curse." Kale, still breathless, reached up with a shaking hand and brushed her cheek. "Then let them," he said softly, "because whatever you are, you just saved my life." In that instant, the man who had despised imperfection found himself bowing, in heart, not in form, to the one woman who shattered every law he'd ever believed in. Kale's thoughts refused to rest. The more he tried to dismiss her from his mind, the deeper her image sank into his consciousness. He had faced assassins, conquered kingdoms, and crushed rebellions. Yet one veiled woman had undone him with a single glance. That night, sleep deserted him. The memory of her eyes, silver gold and bright as fire caught in moonlight, burned behind his eyelids. In the silence of his private chamber, he found himself questioning everything he had believed. Omegas were supposed to be weak. Women were meant to serve. Power belonged to him, the Alpha King. Yet when Elara had stood before him, unafraid, blood staining her hands after saving his life, he had felt small. The next morning he summoned his guards. "Find the queen," he ordered, his tone sharp. "Bring her to me." The guards hesitated. No one had dared question the king's previous command to keep her out of sight. But Kale's glare silenced all doubt. Moments later, Elara entered the throne room, her veil replaced, her posture straight as a blade. Kyle studied her. Every movement was deliberate, every breath measured. She looked fragile, too delicate for war or power, and yet, he had seen the truth, the quiet fire that burned behind that calm facade. "You saved my life," he said finally. "I did what anyone would do," she replied softly. "Lies," Kale growled, rising from his throne. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper as he stepped closer. "You're not what they say you are. You're not weak. You're hiding something, Elara." Her pulse quickened, but she didn't look away. "And if I am?" Kyle's breath hitched. He could smell the truth on her. Not fear, not submission, but defiance wrapped in grace. It both enraged and fascinated him. He leaned closer, his words low and rough. "Then you're the first woman in this kingdom who's ever dared to lie to me. And live." Elara met his gaze squarely. "Then maybe," she said, voice trembling with quiet power, "I'm the first woman who deserves to." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension between them shimmered like heat. And in that breath of silence, Kale realized something he could never admit aloud. His heart, so long encased in ice, had begun to thaw. Kale's patience snapped like a drawn bowstring. He had tolerated her silence, her defiance, even her mysterious power. But this, to have his own queen deny him, in his own palace? His voice thundered through the marble hall. "I am your king, Elara. I command you, remove the veil." The court fell silent. Every noble, every guard froze in fear. The Alpha King's authority was absolute. No one disobeyed him and lived to tell of it. Yet the woman before him didn't tremble. She stood straight, her hands clasped calmly before her, her voice soft but steady. "Some truths," she said, meeting his gaze through the veil's thin silk, "can't be unveiled by command." The word struck deeper than any blade Kale took.